Hi everyone. My computer tells me that you can hear me, but if somebody could confirm, I would really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who is joining and to everyone who joined. Hi Chumba, thank you for being here and thank you for your kind words. I'm just waiting a couple of minutes for confirmation from someone that you can hear me. I know that there are people saying that I shouldn't be doing a live if I don't know if people can hear me or not. But I just want to make sure that I'm not talking to myself, really. Now, this is the long-awaited live, which I was meant to be doing on the 2nd of December. Oh, thank God. Thank you for confirming. So like I said, this is the long-awaited live, which I was meant to be doing on the 2nd of December. Hi Joe, thank you for joining. But sadly, on the same day when I was supposed to be doing this live, I got some horrible news from Romania that my father passed away. And for those of you who know and have read my post, I just wanted to thank you so much for all of your kind words of support. And for those of you who don't know, on the 2nd of December my father, he passed away. He was only 56 years old and he passed away because of a stroke. He was meant to be taking his medication, but he didn't, so that's why he passed away. And it's such a shame because he was really young, 56 years old. And yes, I traveled to Romania to attend his funeral. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to do this live kind of like a distraction, if I'm honest with you, and also because I already promised you, so I'm just gonna get right into it. Hi Artinic, thank you so much for joining. As you can see from the title of this live, I'm here to read to you the new book of Goncalo Amaral's. And before I do that, I just want to thank one of my viewers so much for sending me the PDF version of the book. Since last time in the previous live I said that I can't get a hold of it. So Ola, I don't know if you are here, I don't know if you can see me or not, but thank you so much for sending me the PDF version of the book translated in English. So this is what we are going to be doing today. And obviously I'm not gonna read the whole book in this live because the book has 171 pages, so it's going to be split in more, live videos. Joe is saying, I'm so sorry to hear your news, I really hope you are okay. Thank you so much, Joe. If I'm honest with you, I'm not okay, but I've been on antidepressants for a very long time now, and that kind of, takes the edge off and kind of stops me from feeling much, which in these circumstances I would rather be feeling more. But I guess, this is just the way that I'm dealing with things. So, yeah. Okay, obviously I won't be able to give you any link to the PDF version of the book, and I don't have any reason to believe that it's not the genuine and the original version of the book, except for the PDF thing. And I won't be able to share it further with you because it's not mine. It was sent to me by Ola, by one of my viewers. However, I'm going to put the PDF on the screen, and as I'm reading it you can see it as well. So let me just say hello to some people here. Hi Angel, thank you so much. Hi Jay, thank you. Okay, let me see, how do I change this screen? I'm still so rubbish at this technology. Oh God. Okay, let me see. So if I do this, just give me a second, guys, so I can figure it out. I'm using this software, but I still keep forgetting. I think I got it. That's it. Yes, I got it. I got it. Okay, I'm ready to start reading. So the book is called, just like the title says, in Of This Life, Maddie, Enough of Lies. And guys, I haven't read it at all because first of all, when it was sent to me, I didn't have time to read it, and also I wanted you to, you know, have my first reaction to the book. Okay, are we all ready? Let's start reading. This is a reading session. Let me just grab some water here before I start reading. Hi Ravi, thank you for joining. Right. 1. Conversations in the Tertulia. It is in the lands by the Tagus of dazzling landscapes with enchanting corners, full of stories, legends, passions and life, that in recent years I have tried to solidify the wall built between the past and the present. The case of the mysterious disappearance of Madeleine Mccann and the way forward. Around here, as in many riverside areas, is the site of the Barca. It is not one of those that make up the trilogy of Barcas by the Portuguese poet and playwright Gil Vicente, which in the 16th century marked the historical phase of the passage from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. It is only the memory of a recent past when the riverside populations took the place that took them to the other shore, passing from dry land to dry land without getting their feet wet. Legend has it that it was a queen who gave her name to this land, and the story goes that he was an enterprising and dynamic metallurgical entrepreneur who, at the end of the 1970s, set this land on the path of progress and modernity, starting the long flight of the butterfly, and continually saying, "I always have to walk fast, my path is very long." I really like this beginning. It kind of gives the feeling of something mysterious happening here. Thank you, Ravi, so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Along dirt roads, vineyards, pine groves, fields, and citrus groves, I met people who dazzle with their humility, simplicity, and knowledge. Among them is the rustic Fernando, a 70-year-old man, a former immigrant to Switzerland, now retired. He proudly claims to be the grandson of a Spaniard who may have escaped the Civil War. During his time in the army in the Colonial War, he served as a military intelligence officer in Guinea, where he honed his analytical skills. He talks a lot about the Amura fort in Bissau, the Portuguese soldiers and guerrillas, the stories he experienced there, and the songs he heard. These are memories excuse me, of a time when the Salazar dictatorship, by force of arms, wanted to rob the Portuguese of their youth, and the people of Guinea and other colonies administered and subjugated by Portugal of their freedom and their right to self-determination. Unlike the classic spies, which he never became, Fernando did not spend his retirement tending the roses in his garden, but worked the land from which he harvested vegetables and other plants. To this he adds small carpentry jobs in which he almost looks like the biblical Saint Joseph. In August 2020, the heat of the afternoon makes it advisable to look for a cool space by the river. but the mid-morning bucha at the Valle de Boy Tertuia is something not to be missed. In this small space of 6 square meters, decorated with artifacts of rural work, neighbors and friends gather around morning snacks with 2 fingers of conversation, in a break from the arduous daily work which began before the sun came up. From the old coffee pot on the fire there is an intense and aromatic smell. It is the café de veilla, common in rural areas, which is ready to be served. The coffee muffles the strong smell of the glue used in the carpentry. After the first sip, the first question, shyly, Fernando wants to know my opinion on the main suspect in the kidnapping of the British boy. The wall I am trying to solidify seems to be crumbling. I am here for a pleasant conviviality and not to relieve the disappearance. Reluctantly, I reply, "You're selling a scapegoat. We don't know the child who disappeared, but they want us to know the suspect. Perhaps it would be better to prove that there was an actual abduction, which seems materially impossible." Sorry for the question. I know you don't like to talk about these things, but it was a question I had to ask you. When I met you, I was worried. Things that seem to involve the secret services sometimes end with the death of the one whose voice becomes uncomfortable. I think that actually in this conversation they mean to say about Madeleine Mccann, because I've read that they refer to the boy, the missing boy, but it's probably a mistake in translation there. Hi C, thank you so much. Hi Sue, thank you. The experiences and the accumulation of memories seem to take Fernando back to the days of working in military intelligence. Ask for whatever you want. Don't be afraid for my life or my physical integrity. Those are conspiracy theories. Listen to what I'm going to tell you and then draw your own conclusions about the German suspect. And I believe he refers to Christian Bruckner here. I tell Fernando about the doubts I have and the questions I have asked myself over the years. Among them is one simple question. If there has been a real kidnapping, why change the crime scene to simulate a kidnapping? It doesn't make sense. Fernando, from the height of his experiences, which have provided him with an enormous and enriching life experience, ended the conversation with a simple popular expression used in these lands, when someone wants to refer to some very clever, shrewd and cunning individual. The parents of that child are skinny as a hunchback. So, if I'm getting this right, Amaral is saying that if there has been a real kidnapping, why change the crime scene to simulate a kidnapping? Does that mean that they actually have evidence that they made the crime scene look like a kidnapping? That's very interesting. Because, yeah, there were conversations around this, but I don't think there was any official source who ever said or claimed that the crime scene was staged to look like a kidnapping. And in his book, he's now saying it. So my assumption is that there is some kind of evidence. Let's carry on. The wall that I have built over the years and that I have tried to reaffirm has finally collapsed. It is time to finish the review of the investigation into the disappearance and to analyze the work of the German police in constructing a suspect. After 14 years, there are more doubts than certainties, many questions and few answers. I am not trapped in the past, but for a moment I seem to feel the warmth of the morning at the end of a night of surveillance many years ago in the middle of my first counter-narcotics operation by sea. I remember thinking what good taste the traffickers had in choosing such a nice place, but those people didn't think so. It was a safe beach, like so many others along the Algarve coast, where the hashish was unloaded from the fishing boats that dared to sail to the coast of Morocco. I stood there on a nearby night, watching the lights of a small town and some bright spots in the sea. In almost absolute silence, you had to watch the access road to the beach and see without being seen. When daylight came and the operation was over, it was time to get to know the place and discover the promontory and the chapel of Nuestra Señora de la Roca, that sacred place that marks its appearance. Since then, when I have doubts, when I organize ideas and need to be closer to divine clairvoyance, I go there, always alone and in the early hours of the day. There is not a soul in sight. I don't pray, I don't ask or pray, I just feel the peace of the place while I unfold my thoughts and find arguments that give me solidity and strength, banishing doubts and fears. More than 20 years have passed. I have married and had children. I have been successful in my career. Time seems to have passed too quickly. One moment I was progressing in a career in criminal investigation, the next I was retired and out of the institution of the judicial police. It is true that it was my decision to leave the police force, but the reasons that led me to put an end to the exercise of a professional activity that I embraced by vocation with heart and soul were beyond my control. So I'm guessing here he kind of confirms that he was made to leave his job. I am fully convinced that my early retirement from the judicial police was an exercise of my own free will, but as a consequence of one or more acts that were the responsibility of others, mainly of someone who did not know how to take care of his children. A simple act, the flapping of a butterfly's wings, which provoked a typhoon and installed chaos in the lives of all those who, directly or indirectly, were connected with the investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine Mccann. Years have passed, too many years, but the story or the investigation is still with me and I have not given up. So, you guys, let me know in the comments, in the live chat, what do you think so far? Sorry. So, I suppose we are at chapter 2, a careless act with consequences. On 29th of April 2007, at the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz, Algarve, 8 children under the age of 4 are left alone in their rooms while their parents go out for dinner. Most of the parents are doctors, they are on holiday and neglect the care of their children. They are all from the UK, mostly English, who, like so many others, have chosen Portugal and the Algarve as their holiday destination. They come from the country where democracy and humor were invented, when exaggerated manifestation of feelings and any excessive emotion are considered particularly inconvenient. It is the culture of the gentleman and aristocratic standards of behavior that prevail. They are from the land where, in the 17th century, the Bill of Rights emerged as a guarantee of constitutional rights of liberty and the climate of tolerance was established. At the same time, the free press and the end of censorship gave rise to a new power, public opinion. On 3rd of May, at around 10:05 p.m., the alarm was raised. One of the children was missing, Madeleine Mccann. That same night, the judicial police began investigations that turned out to be complex and politically influenced. To this day, it is not known what happened to that child, nor who is responsible for the disappearance. In September 2007, the investigation pointed to the child's parents as the main perpetrators of the disappearance. They were constituted as defendants, a status they maintain to this day. This report represents the position of the judicial police and the British police officers who, on the ground, followed the investigations. The prosecution went beyond the provisional and intermediate conclusions of the criminal investigation police about the possible accidental death, and in documents included in the file wrote, "Conduct is being investigated which may form part of the offenses of kidnapping/qualified murder and others." So yet again we have a confirmation that They were constituted as defendants, a status that they maintain to this day, even though here in the UK, like everybody in the media, they are claiming otherwise. And in particular, you know, the British media, the British police, and all of those people who are supportive of the Mccanns. So if we are to believe what Goncalo Amaral is saying, although I don't have any reason to believe that he would be lying, then that's not entirely true, is it? And moreover, as far as I understand from what I've just read, the British police, they know this and they knew this. Okay, let's pop a comment on here. Joe is saying, I think that Amaral knows what has happened. He knows that he could have solved the mystery. Oh yes, I have to agree with you. I agree with you. But he was obstructed by outside forces. But I think that the death of Madeleine occurred before the 3rd. And it's quite possible. We will carry on with the book, and let's see what's Amaral's view on this. Arctic is saying Goncalo Amaral was correct, and the parents, Tapa 7 and UK authorities should all be fully exposed and held accountable. Yes, I agree with you. Okay, moving on. The report was sent to the prosecutor of the Lagos Judicial Circuit, and it was suggested that the parents be questioned again and that a coercive measure be applied other than the term of identity and residence to which the accused were subjected. It was also suggested that copies of the diary-type manuscript written by the child's mother be sent to the judge for seizure according to the legal terms, as this volume could contain elements that would allow the material truth of the facts under investigation to be established. The content of the report marked an important turning point in the investigation. It gave priority to the investigation of one of the hypotheses in question, the possible involvement of the child's parents in her disappearance and the circumstances in which her death may have occurred. However, the possible involvement of people outside the family was not left aside. There was a way forward. At the time, and given the evidence gathered, the child's death was the most likely hypothesis. The death could have been caused by a tragic domestic accident, specifically the use of an antihistamine called Calpol, which the parents had given to the missing child and the siblings. Calpol, guys, Calpol. It was imperative to continue the investigation to locate the body, or, if we were wrong about the fatal outcome, to recover the child alive. That was our priority. At the end of this road, suspicions about the parents could be completely ruled out. So you see, all of those conspiracy theories that we talked about over the years, they are kind of turning to be correct and not so much conspiracies. He's saying about Calpol as well, and a lot of us, we've been having conversations around Calpol, and even I covered this in one of my videos, because at that time Calpol had different ingredients than it does now, and if I'm not mistaken, some of the ingredients they were legally they were illegal to add, so they were removed from the shelves. I'm not quite sure exactly how it was, but yes. That did not happen. On 2nd of October 2007, I was removed from the investigation of the case, or rather indirectly removed. My secondment to the Portimao Judicial Police Department, where the investigation was being carried out, was terminated. The case would continue there. It was not handed over to another police department, which could have happened, but that would have been more scandalous, publicly calling into question all the elements that investigated the case. This would be a direct and abusive intervention in a concrete criminal investigation. and he would return to Faro to coordinate the sections in charge of investigating violent and organized crime, the fight against banditry and drug trafficking. Naively, or perhaps not, the night before he had an outburst with a journalist. Tired of the dubious position of his British colleagues in the face of yet more UK nonsense, he said, as if to put an end to it, "What the British should be worried about is the death of the child." Sorry. Now this third person, I think, is referring to Amaral. For some reason it's been translated probably the wrong way. The outburst turned into an interview, something that had not happened before. The consequences were my abrupt withdrawal from the investigation. All was calm and serene. The person who was operationally coordinating the investigation was dismissed and another coordinator was put in place. A few more selected men were sent to Portimao, supposedly to reinforce the team. But in these things there is always a what. The director of the Faro Judicial Police, Guillermino de Encarnacio, is being asked for names, but nobody wants to accept the coordination of the Portimao department, at least as long as the case continues. Guillermino asked for my opinion. At one point I tell him that there is a suitable person, the one who was suspected of going around daily filling the ears of the national director. He had no direct or indirect connection with the ongoing investigation, but it seemed that from Lisbon he intervened in another way. I say to Guillermino, look, if he is so good and if, as they say, he seems to be so well informed about what is going on in Portimao, he is the ideal person to take the place and solve the case. The name is proposed to the board and my colleague accepts the position. With the arrival of the new officials in Portimao, the initial team is disbanded. Preparations begin for the case to be closed, which was expected to take place within 2 months. Optimists predicted that by Christmas 2007, the new team would be back home and the case closed. But these predictions did not come true. The fulfillment of a rogatory commission in the UK, an instrument of police and judicial cooperation between countries requesting investigative measures, and the reconstitution of the events of that night, a point of honor for the new coordinator, delayed the final destination set for the case, its closure. This mysterious disappearance was causing political, institutional and judicial damage. The case was getting worse, the judicial police and the judicial system were clearly worn out. It needed to be brought to an end. Let's see what Arctic is saying. I believe Kay drugged Madeleine and Jerry provided CPR, which produced the blood splatter on the walls. I think that it is a very believable theory, and it kind of makes sense with the blood splatter on the walls. Hi, Idaho. Thanks for joining. Hi, Catalina. Yes, you are correct. Carpol was taken off the shelves a year or so later. It was not the same Carpol that is available today. Yeah, thank you for confirming that. I remember something, but I just wasn't quite sure. I have so many things in my head. It's so hard to remember things sometimes. Okay, moving on. The child's parents, their lawyers and supporters subsequently argued that the investigation that took place after that date, 21st of October 2007, when the new team started working, was complementary, i.e. the disappearance, causes and consequences had already been investigated. We do not believe that an order to close an incomplete and unfinished investigation can be interpreted as exonerating. The crux of the matter has not been clarified, as it is not known what actually happened to the child. Contrary to the claims of some parents and their lawyers, there was no further investigation. There were still several steps to be taken, the results of which could have reinforced the suspicions that existed in September 2007. And perhaps the reenactment of the events, line here. And perhaps the existing evidence could have been called into question in particular by carrying out a reenactment of the events of the night of 3rd of May 2007. The child's parents have not been exonerated, contrary to what their communicators and defenders suggest. There were no new findings of fact that contradicted in any way the provisional conclusions compiled in the case file at the end of September 2007. Nothing new has been established. Rather, in my view, there was a mere devaluation of the evidence that existed at the time of the decision to close the case. If the public prosecutor's office had considered the parents as suspects, it is difficult to understand how, faced with the same facts and evidence, it can change its mind. The assessment made after the last 6 months of the investigation, after almost the entire initial team and its operational coordinator had been replaced, and after a period of preparation of the case, with a view to its premature and hasty closure, thought out and desired by the management of the judicial police and the highest levels of the public prosecutor's office, led to the abrupt interruption of the investigation into the disappearance. One of the suggestions made to the public prosecutor's office on 10th of September 2007 was possible reinterrogation of the accused. This consideration of reinterrogation was necessary in view of the inconsistencies and contradictions contained in the various statements. It was also necessary to clarify facts that had not been answered or clarified by the suspects. What facts? Among them, the simulation of a kidnapping through the intentional change of scene, the open curtains and the bottle on the floor, the bed where the child slept, composed and tidy, with its pink blanket folded and properly lined up with a teddy bear, the fingerprints of the child's mother imprinted on the inside of the window of the child's room and through which the proponents of the abduction thesis say the abductors entered or left, referring the suspects to it being open at the time of the missing persons alert. There was also the mark on the boy's wrist, actually the girl's wrist, I think, visible in a photograph taken on the tennis court at the Ocean Club complex days or hours before the disappearance, which could be consistent with a violent tug. The boy's mother, as in I think the girl's mother, went so far as to say that this mark was the result of exposure to the sun, a small spot caused by the sun on the right forearm. So again, another conspiracy theory, which is not so much a conspiracy theory, because a lot of us, we've been discussing that there was some kind of bruising on Madeleine's hand. And here, Amaral is confirming this. Jay is saying, I think they are both guilty. There's so much evidence against them. I'm 100% positive, in my opinion. Hi Jackie, thank you for joining and thank you so much for your kind words. The excuse of sunburn does not hold water, as the mark was on the wrist as if someone had grabbed and pulled it with excessive force. On the other hand, the child was wearing short-sleeved clothing, so as it was a sunburn, it could not have been so localized and well drawn. It is curious that the photograph of the child, the image of the girl holding tennis balls, in which the sunburn can be seen, is sometimes reported in the media, but none of them have mentioned it. There is no reference to the date it should be noted. On the other hand, it was necessary to clarify the question of the use of antihistamines, Calpol, to put children to sleep. The statements of the child's grandfather were already known. The taking of the medicine was habitual. It was discovered that the child had difficulty sleeping and that the twins, Madeleine's siblings, did not wake up during the night of the mysterious disappearance, despite the noise made by the couple's friends, volunteers, and the police. Fiona Payne stated that the children's mother had spent the rest of the night monitoring the twins' breathing, which, if they wouldn't have given the children something to help them sleep, I wouldn't see a reason why the children's mother, as in Kate Mccann, would spend the rest of the night monitoring the twins' breathing. Here is another thing. These facts, together with the statement of the mother, a doctor by profession, 2 months later, who hypothesized that the children had been sedated, led to the suspicion that a tragic domestic accident had caused the probable death of the child. A wrong dose of Calpol, perhaps an overdose, was one hypothesis. The blood found behind the sofa in the living room of the flat may have come from a desperate attempt at resuscitation, which is scientifically possible. Calpol was available in that holiday home, so it was important to check if there was any connection between that drug and the disappearance. So, circling back to you, Nick, Arctic Nick, you said that the blood splatter on the walls could be a sign of CPR. And a lot of us, we've been discussing this, and in videos and on blog posts and Facebook posts and so on and so forth. And now we have another confirmation that is scientifically possible that the blood was because it's possible resuscitation was attempted. Now again, Calpol. This Calpol thing, Calpol didn't used to be, Calpol is not an antihistamine today. Calpol is a cold medicine, cold syrup today, isn't it? Interesting. Very interesting. Yes, Arctic, yes, he does. Joe is saying Amaral was looking for a house with a freezer. According to Peter Scherenberg, a Portuguese medical doctor, had an apartment close to the Smithman sighting that he let out privately. Well, I guess we're going to have to carry on with the book. Maybe we can find the answer in there as well. We are only on what page is it? We are only on page 6, and we are already getting confirmation of so many theories that we discussed, and this time is coming straight from Amaral, who was part of the investigation. So this kind of puts my mind at ease that a lot of us who have been talking about this, we have been right, even though we didn't have any kind of confirmation, but now we do. Okay, I was here. So moving on from the Calpol. No one is raising unfounded suspicions about the parents, let alone accusing them of any crime. What is being reported is what appears in the criminal case file. They are looking for details and investigative steps that have not been taken. The most incredulous and those unfamiliar with the ins and outs of the investigation and the content of the case will wonder why, since the 7th of September 2007, the date of the interrogations of the girls' parents, they have not testified again. The reason is simple. Even before the couples returned to the UK, which followed their questioning as defendants, the prosecutor in charge of the case objected to this, arguing that the parents had already answered many questions and that they should not be overwhelmed with further questions. This position is set out in the magistrate's order dated 19th of September 2007 on the interim report. The defendants were heard as such, the former having chosen in exercise of her right not to make statements and her husband to intervene. Thus, if with regard to the defendant, the mother of the missing child, any further questioning would be meaningless since she chose not to testify, no further questioning of the child's father is justified, at least for the time being, given that there are no new facts to confront with him. The same situation as with the mother, which renders any further questioning meaningless. Again, it's very interesting that Kate Mccann chose not to testify because we were not aware of that. At least I wasn't aware of that. I don't think there was ever any mention in any media reports that Kate chose not to testify. I mean, we know that there was a whole circus around how the Portuguese police, they were so rude with the Mccanns when they were questioning the Mccanns, and how Kate didn't answer questions. But now we have from the magistrate's order, from the interim report, that Kate Mccann chose not to testify. So again, if we are to say that, okay, Kate and Jerry didn't do anything to their daughter, to Madeleine Mccann, then why on earth would you refuse to testify if it would in any way help with, you know, investigating what happened to your child? Thank you, Idaho. Thank you for your support. This was the decision of the prosecutor's magistrate expressed in an order. In his opinion, there are no new facts, so that those suspected of committing a crime should only be questioned by the police a second time if they exist. Attempts by the police to clarify contradictions and inconsistencies were no longer justified, at least for the time being. Witness statements, in particular those resulting from the execution of the letters rogatory in the UK, should be reviewed. To give just one example, we have the statements of one of the holiday makers about the behavior of the child's mother towards her children. She spent the night monitoring her breathing. Has this been forgotten? And did the magistrate not read these statements, which were never translated into Portuguese, at least in time for the decision to close the case? Or did the "at least for now" serve to close the case, and therefore a new interrogation was no longer justified? Oh, by the way, I'm going to correct my mistake here. At the beginning of this live, I said that the book has 171 pages. And I've just realized now that the book actually has 141 pages, which is not a big deal, but you know, it's just for my own peace of mind. Sorry. I do not mean to question the professionalism of the magistrate, the legality of his decision, or his power to decide as he did. However, his opinion expressed in an order is public and can and should be subject to scrutiny. As for the suggestion to change the measure of restraint, the magistrate wrote that there were no grounds to promote any change because a change in the measures of restraint applied to the defendants would presuppose that the defendants had violated the obligations imposed and other measures of restraint provided for in the Code of Criminal Procedure and admissible only in the case of a flight or danger of flight, danger of disruption of the course of the inquiry or investigation, and in particular danger to the collection, preservation, or veracity of evidence, or danger owing to the nature and circumstances of the offense or the personality of the accused that he will continue his criminal activity or seriously disturb public order and peace. The evidence in the file unequivocally demonstrates that the defendants have not failed to comply with any of the obligations imposed by the coercive measure applied. On the other hand, none of the requirements for a further coercive measure are met. The defendants live in the UK according to the address they have provided, and furthermore, being currently in the UK, it is not clear that they can now have an interference with the production of the evidence, its collection, preservation, or veracity. It then emerged that the return of the missing child's parents to the UK had not constituted a flight. The fact that already in the UK and in Ireland where a large number of the witnesses live, they were contacted by the defendant's staff and others personally by the child's father is of no interest. What about the support they receive from the British police? And what about the work of their private detectives in producing sightings as well as in cleaning up in Portugal of likely evidence collection sites? To this must be added the actions of the communications agency in building up a good image of the accused through interviews, documentaries, and a book written by the mother. There is also the invasion of the private lives of those responsible for the investigation and political pressure. None of these interfere with the production, acquisition, preservation, or veracity of the evidence. In my opinion, the subsequent events showed that the magistrate was wrong and the investigation and the trial were heavily prejudiced by the failure to modify the coercive measures. Just bear in mind that the reenactment of the facts was not carried out because the defendants refused to do so. The initial version included the use of the dogs specialized in detecting blood and body odors on the clothes of the remaining members of the holiday group who returned to the UK before the searches with the canines that took place in August 2007 in Praia da Luz. This position of the prosecutor, which took place at the end of September 2007, confirmed the worst fears of the investigators. The investigation into the disappearance would be interrupted. As an illustrious Portuguese lawyer said on RTP Television's Pros and Cons program, the child is already there. Now we have to think about the parents. At the time, these harsh words shocked all the participants in the debate and the Portuguese in general. Today, they still do. We must think of the parents of long-term absent children who suffer, especially when they have no responsibility for the disappearance. The child has a right to the discovery of the material truth and to justice. He or she was or remains a person with universally enshrined rights which are not dependent on the will or opinion of his or her parents or anyone else. And it can never be said to be a holiday that he returned to the UK before the canine search in Praia da Luz in August 2007. This stance by the prosecutor, which came at the end of September, confirmed the worst fears of the investigators. This one is repeating itself. Okay, let me see. Where is the next bit? Yeah, he or she was or remains a person with universally enshrined rights which are not dependent on the will or opinion of his or her parents or anyone else. And you can never say the child is already there. What is done after such declaration? And there is a note here, I suppose it's from whoever translated this book. In order to standardize the present edition, we have chosen to convert all quotations to the current spelling convention and to correct typos in official documents without distorting the meaning of what was originally written. So I guess we are moving on to chapter 3, the interim report and initial conclusions. At the beginning of September 2007, following the interrogation of the child's parents and their departure from Portugal, it became essential to take stock of the investigation that had been carried out up to that point. The so-called interim report was drawn up in order to systemize the steps taken and to note the state of the investigation. These police reports are common to any investigation that becomes complex and lengthy. Throughout 15 pages of the criminal file, there is a provisional report dated 10th of September 2007, written and signed by the Chief Inspector of the Judicial Police, Tavares de Almeida, in which he gives an account of the point at which the investigation was at that time and of the suspicions which at that time fell on the parents of the missing child, and in which the following can be read. Madeleine Beth Mccann was born on 12th of May 2003. She has been missing since 3rd of May 2007, which occurred in Praia da Luz, Lagos. Her birth was wanted and planned. However, mention must be made of the difficulty for the mother to become pregnant, which entails the necessary treatments and their price. She was born by in vitro insemination, but given the child's DNA trace, she is the Mccann's daughter. It is a scientific fact that medical treatments to overcome some of the reasons for the lack of pregnancy increase the likelihood of twins being born in a so-called normal pregnancy. In this case, we can see that a pregnancy although wanted and planned, became a family situation of 5 instead of 3 people. So, caring for one child is not the same as caring for 3, all at an early age. At around midnight on 3rd of May 2007, through a phone call from the Lagos GNR to this police station, a minor girl, a British national, was reported missing. We went to the scene to carry out the necessary judicial inspection. Faced with the fact, the disappearance of a minor, the investigation painted different possible pictures. Firstly, the parents of the minor attributed the event, the disappearance, to the action of a third party defending the kidnapping. Although it was one of the possible scenarios, the family's procedures were going to lead in that direction through an action of publicizing the event in a way never seen before. In fact, the next day, the English TV stations, when they opened their news programs, were already announcing the disappearance, kidnapping of the child. The defense of this scenario was for the media the truth of the investigated facts. The information gathered at first from relatives and friends was uncertain and worked by the group to give strength to the version presented and defended. According to the version of the parents and the group, they went to dinner and all left their children sleeping in their respective flats. The members of the group held a meeting at which they agreed on certain rules that supported the version of continuous surveillance of the children while they were having dinner. Attached to the file is a manuscript from a member of the group which gives substance to this thesis. From the statements of the whole group, a total incoherence emerges in which it is easy to see that they are all lying. The truth, however, is that this information leads the investigation to digress, to waste time and resources. It is not understandable that this information is given at the beginning and kept throughout, despite the fact that anyone can see the resulting damage to the investigation. After all this time, the version still stands, along with the public and ham-fisted statement that what they want most of all is to help the investigation. The investigation had to come to terms with the incorrectness of the information and move on. The last time the girl was seen outside the group by someone who could accredit this moment was around 17:35 hours, when her parents went to pick her up at the nursery, which may increase the time interval between the disappearance and the alert to 4 hours. Continuing with the analysis of the information provided, we have that one of the elements of the group became a witness, allegedly an important one, Jane Tanner, because of what she told us. She saw someone crossing the street from the place of the disappearance in the direction of Robert Murad's house at dinner time. This information directed and occupied the work of the investigators for a long time. This may be an example of how information that is not correct can not only delay but also lead to the loss of the child. Through the insistence on information, scenarios of non-conformity with realities were drawn, but this did not prevent the realization of a long and intense work around this defendant. The moment chosen by witness Jane to give the information of what she had seen and the explanation of that moment is unreal. It would not be readily acceptable that any witness of the group, upon seeing someone with a child on his lap walking away from the house, would not have acted or spoken immediately, being certain that the person's own description would be successively altered and refined. Therefore, there is not much credibility in this testimony. The investigation was not carried out at anyone's behest or convenience. Family and group information, fundamental in this type of crime, was always distorted. The fact that they are foreigners has prevented to this day the gathering of direct information on the members of the group. After the whole group was at the table and the meal had begun, the visits to the children began in a way that is neither coherent nor acceptable, and which cannot be confirmed and which only the group defends in the type of single version. Although they state in the file that their strategic position in the tapas restaurant allowed them, the parents, to see the flat where they left their children, minors, sleeping, so the on-site examination seems to be false. It should also be noted from the evidence in the file that everything points to the fact that their positions at the table were with their backs to the floor. That night at around 10:05 p.m., according to her version, it was the mother's turn to go to the flat to check on the children, coinciding with the end of dinner, which she had arrived at around 8:30 p.m. She returned to the flat an hour and a half later to check on the children. She returned to the flat an hour and a half later, during which time she did not see her children. It took about 10 minutes. She then appeared at the restaurant and informed the rest of the staff of her daughter Madeleine's disappearance. The mother was well aware that by going to the restaurant as she did, she would leave the two twins, Emily and Sean, in the same dangerous situation. It's incomprehensible that she did not use her mobile phone to call her husband or the group, or more simply, that she did not approach the balcony from where she could be perfectly audible to members of the group. The authorities, the GNR, were alerted at around 10:40 p.m. and the search was launched by alerted neighbors to find the minor. Disclosure of the events was not limited to the authorities and normal broadcasts. The following day, English and Portuguese TV channels reported the incident. In the meantime, the group had gathered. The search was limited to the interior of the flat. Before the police searched the surrounding area, news of the possible kidnapping had already spread. For reasons, they say, of counseling and support for the parents, they requested the presence of a priest at around 2 or 3 o'clock on 4th of May. From the informal statements they made during the judicial inspection at the scene, the information immediately led to the thesis of abduction. Simple things became misinformation. The question of the window open or closed, the shutter open or closed, the balcony door open, the entrance door to the flat closed or locked. Nevertheless, up to a certain point in the investigation, the family maintained and nurtured the abduction thesis. However, at an unspecified date, the family suggested that a person had been consulted who could indicate the likely location of Madeleine's body. Excuse me. This was inexplicable to investigators, as it was the family itself that raised suspicions about little Maddie's death. Despite this, in front of the media, they continued to state, and continue to do so, their hope of finding their daughter alive. The first time the hypothesis that the child was dead was, in fact, suggested by her parents. Although several lines of investigation remain open, it was decided to proceed with a new inspection of the place where the girl disappeared. The inspection technique is commonly used in the UK and involves the use of two specially trained dogs. Naturally, the animal's sense of smell is the sense used. In the case of this sense, the difference between man and dog is 5 million cells to 200 million cells. It is remarkable that this type of inspection is frequently used in the UK and the success rate is 100%. 100%. One of the dogs is trained to detect the smell of dead bodies and the other to identify traces of human blood. We emphasize at this point that the location of body odor means that physically the body, the corpse, is not at the location marked by the dog, but it was certainly there as the dog points it out. According to the respective records contained in the consultation, the dogs carried out cyanotechnical inspections at the places identified below and on the objects described with the results indicated. All inspections were audio and video recorded and conducted by the British colleagues who accompanied the dogs. In this large number of objects and locations inspected, the dogs came to identification behavior marked at the following locations and objects. let's just pause for a second here and see what Joe is saying. Joe is saying, I think that Amaral got too close to the truth and was forced to leave, as he would have found the parents guilty. Yes, I agree with you, and this is a very, very general opinion of a lot of us out there. And he explained it as well, more or less. So, moving on to the following locations and objects. Floor 5A, Ocean Club Complex, the place from where the girl disappeared. Corpse-smelling dog. In the couple's bedroom, in a corner next to the wardrobe. In the living room, behind the sofa, next to the side window of the flat. So this was the cadaver dog, and he smelled in Kate and Jerry Mccann's bedroom, in a corner next to the wardrobe, in the living room, behind the sofa, next to the side window of the flat. So Madeleine was there, passed away sadly, according to the dogs. The blood dog in the living room, behind the sofa, near the side window of the flat, exactly the same place marked by the dog with the dead body smell. Number 2, backyard area adjoining flat 5A. Number 2, corpse smelling dog in one of the flower beds, with the handler commenting on the faintness of the odor detected. Floors were where the other elements of the group were housed. None of the dogs detected anything. Parents' current house to date, nothing was detected in the house by any of the dogs. In Aldea da Luz, none of the dogs reported it. To the clothes and belonging of the missing child's family. Body odor dog. Let's remember, this is the cadaver dog. On 2 pieces of the mother's clothing, on 1 piece of the minor Madeleine's clothing, on the teddy bear of the minor Madeleine, body odor was detected when the teddy bear was still inside the residence on the family's date, confirmed in conditions outside the house. In the vehicle used by the family of the missing child, the body scent dog marked the key of the vehicle, marked the inside of the boot of the vehicle. I am getting something here and it's quite heartbreaking. So they detected, the cadaver dog detected odor on the teddy bear. Does this mean that Madeleine was holding her teddy when she passed away? Oh God, it's so sad. So the body scent dog marked the key of the vehicle, marked the inside of the boot of the vehicle. The blood dog marked the key of the vehicle, marked the inside of the boot of the vehicle. Vehicle used by a friend of the family who was in the same village on some of the days, nothing was detected by any of the dogs. All vehicles used by the defendant Robert Murat and persons close to him, nothing was detected by any of the dogs. Out of a total of 10 vehicles, the cadaver sniffing dog and the blood sniffing dog only made marks on the vehicle of the missing child's family, rented on 27th of May 2007. The places and parts marked and marked by the blood dog are undergoing examinations, part of which have been concluded. No less relevant is the finding that Madeleine's DNA is present at the place on floor 5A, behind the sofa, a place marked by the cadaver detection dog and therefore also by the blood dog. In all the places marked by the blood dog, the lab confirmed the presence of DNA. Arctic Nick is saying, what about the missing blue sports kit bag? Let's see, maybe we'll find out more in this book. I don't think we got there yet. Maybe we will know more. The media attention given to the case and the demand for information from the media has led to an evolution in the statements of Madeleine's parents. All the following information, neither of the 2 dogs detected anything. Out of a total of 10 vehicles, only the missing child's family's vehicle, rented on 27th of May, was marked by the cadaver dog and the blood detection dog. The places and parts marked and marked by the blood dog are undergoing examinations, some of which have been completed. I think this is repeating again. Let me double check. So the media attention given to the case and the demand for information from the media has led to an evolution in the statements of Maddie's parents. All the information that has been made public has contributed to remaking the story, adapting it to possible police questions, and trying to justify the clues and consequent evidence being collected. Let's see. The media have suggested the hypothesis that the children had been sedated to sleep to allow their parents to rest. Temporarily, the child's maternal grandfather, Brian H., admits to the media that the mother may have given them a drug called Calpol to help the children sleep, contrary to what her daughter has claimed. The mother, through the PJ's family liaison, came to ask why samples had not been taken from the twins to test the hypothesis. She knew that, at that point, more than 3 months had passed, which according to specialists in the field makes such an examination impossible. And of course, Kate being a doctor or in the medical field, she would probably know that, and then if she would have been so honest and so open and so helpful, she could have offered this right at the beginning, the same night or the next day or in a week or whatever. But she didn't. She did this 3 months later, after she already, I'm 100% sure, knew that they won't find anything. She went further by saying that we were able, the investigation, to prove that the kidnapper had sedated Madeleine to carry out his act, and that he had also sedated the twins to carry out his act. But she did not say so at the right time. What is true, as we know, is that sedatives have times of action and times to be expelled varying from 6 to 200 hours. The parents' medical qualifications are sufficient to know this scientific fact, even if they have never carried out toxicology work in their professional activity. When the media reported that blood had been detected in the car and in the flat, the mother and the family members went to the public with the simple excuse that it was someone with access to the flat who had planted the evidence. Now they even admit that it was the criminal investigation body that planted false evidence, blood and body odors in the flat and the vehicle. The mother, in an attempt to justify the blood, would have gone further, claiming on this occasion that Madeleine sometimes bled from the nose. And also, of course, she was saying that she used the same trousers that she used in the UK when she went visiting the morgue, and that was the reason why the dog alerted to her trousers, which is completely bull if you ask me, because whoever goes on holiday wearing or with the same pair of trousers that they went to the morgue, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Joy saying, I have also listened to evidence that suggests that the parents went further away from the tapas bar to Chaplin's one night and didn't return until after midnight. Yes, I've read that as well. Idaho is saying, later in the book, Goncalo Amaral suggests the possibility that something could have happened earlier in the week. Interesting. Did you read the book already? Don't spoil it, please. Because I want to know my genuine reaction on the spot as I'm reading it and you guys' reactions. That was about, so Joe is saying that was about 30 minutes away, the Chaplin's. Jazz is saying, well done, Kat, with sensible, brave people such as yourself continuing to question the official narrative. There is always a chance that the truth will come out. Thank you so much. Kidnapping is a situation with which in the UK much of the public is unfortunately familiar because of the quota for this type of crime. Intelligent people should have the minimum knowledge that publicity is detrimental to the investigation of a kidnapping offense and especially to the safety of the kidnapped person. They should await the decisions of law enforcement authorities as there are strong indications that they have tampered with the crime scene by moving some furniture. The alterations are indicative of simulation. On the night of Madeleine's disappearance, the family was contacted by a lady who identified herself as someone working with children in the UK. She identified herself with the documents, credentials that are used in the UK with hospitals and childcare centers. She was willing to help in any way necessary. No doubt this person could have been a help, even in terms of procedures, but she was ruled out. And we are already 1 hour into this, into reading the book. And guys, I do apologize, but I need to take a breathing break here. So I'm just gonna pause this live for about 5 minutes, and then excuse me, and then I will be back. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with the breathing thing. So okay, I'll pause this, and then we'll catch up on the comments. And yeah, so you guys, you take a break as well, maybe drink some coffee, drink some tea, whatever else. I'll see you shortly. Okay everyone, I'm back. I hope you had a good break. Before we carry on, fun fact here, well, fun fact, I think it's a fun fact. I actually hate reading books, any kind of books. I just completely hate reading them. This is the only book that I have read, the first book of Goncalo Amaral's, and now this book here. So yeah, I am very dedicated, I think. Okay, let me catch up on the comments and then we will carry on with the book. Where was I with the comments? Alright, here. Joe is saying there was a third timeline found in Kate's possession that was totally different from the first two presented. That does suggest staging. Yes, I agree with you, because in one of my videos I went through all three of the timelines and that was my opinion on those as well. The way that I've seen it was, why would you need three different timelines, and more specifically, why would you even need to write down a timeline? You know, it was just weird. It was just weird. Jazz is saying, I have followed this case from the beginning, but I've only heard evidence which points to the parents. No one has ever presented evidence to disprove these theories. I agree with you. I agree with you, and it's possible that no one presented evidence to disprove the theories because there is no evidence to disprove the theories. And so might I add, in my opinion, in my humble opinion as a random person here talking to you, the evidence would point to the parents, which we've been saying for a very long time. Jane is asking, has anything else been said about the report of Mccann's removing the apartment fridge and replacing it themselves? This is a bizarre action when it wasn't their responsibility to do this. Well, so far as we are reading the book, there was no mention of this yet, but I'm not sure. I haven't read the book. This is the first time I'm reading this book right now, so I mean, we do have 141 pages to go through, so it's possible. I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Joe is saying it suggests simulation of events. Yes, definitely, I agree with that. Hi, the Ho. That's okay. I don't think you are here anymore, but thank you so much for joining. Susie is saying, hi Kat, so sorry to hear about your father, sending condolences to you and your family. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's very kind. Jersey girl, follow the father's business doings and his associates. There is much more to the story than just the murder of his child. Yes, I've done a few videos, well, a lot of videos on the Madeleine Mccann case, possible connections, political connections, work and stuff like that. And what comes to mind now, right now, at the top of my head, is the Goncalo Amaral connection. When there was a study done on, what was it, radiation, and the children in the area of a plant dying of leukemia, and Jerry Mccann was part of the report where it was mentioned that the plant being there didn't affect the fatality rate of those children. This was a report in the UK. Previously, another report in Germany was made, exactly the same study, which discovered that children living near plants, indeed, they are exposed to radiation, or was it to do with nuclear, I think, and indeed the fatality rate of those children is much higher. And I found it very interesting because on one hand the German study says that yes, the fatality is higher in those children who live nearby plants, yet in the UK is not. You know, it was kind of the same study performed by different countries, and in this report from the UK, Jerry was part of the team who was giving their opinions. Then also I found another possible connection with Porton down here in the UK, and also another possible connection with the US. So, you know, if you go through my older videos, there are plenty of them there. I can't remember everything now because when I was doing my research there were just so many things, I can't remember everything. Right, carrying on now with the book. Where did we leave it at? Oh yes, the social worker, she was ruled out. From all the evidence, the facts indicate that Madeleine McCann's death occurred on the night of 3rd of May inside flat 5A of the Ocean Club complex in Praia da Luz. There is a coincidence between the signs of body odor and blood and the partial lab report already attached to the file. This signaling occurred behind the sofa in the living room, smell of corpse, blood, DNA, which undoubtedly proves that this piece of furniture was evidently thrown away by someone after the death of Madeleine McCann was established. Given the limited evidence collected at the scene and examined, it is very likely that it was washed at the time after the death. Also, the stuffed animal used by the dead girl, found at the head of the bed where she normally slept, reveals that someone placed it there at the time after her death, as the bed itself does not have the smell of a corpse, so she was never in bed. In other words, there was an intentional modification in the sense of simulating an image that does not correspond to reality, in an attempt to take advantage of it to simulate a kidnapping. It should also be added that the dog with the smell of the corpse strongly pointed to the room where the parents were sleeping, which may indicate the displacement of the body from the place of death, living room, to an area not visible in that room. There was also another strong trace of body odor on the mother's clothes, which may indicate that she had been in contact with the body. There is also a strong trace of body odor on the car used by the parents from 27th of May 2007, which, combined with the blood dog mark and supported by the lab tests in the file, which indicate the presence of Madeleine McCann's DNA in the boot of the car, are not to exclude the strong hypothesis that this car may have been used for a possible transfer of the body 24 days after the death occurred. So where did they hide her body for 24 days before they moved her, allegedly? The indication of the cadaver sniffer dog as well as of the blood dog in the key lab confirmed the existence of DNA of the child's father. It should be added that the latter signal was obtained by the dogs after placing the key far away from the vehicle and in an inconspicuous place. In the light of the above, it appears from the proceedings that A. The minor Madeleine McCann died on floor 5A of the Ocean Club in Praia da Luz on the night of 3rd of May 2007. B. An abduction simulation was carried out. C. In order to make the death of the child before 10 p.m. possible, a situation of surveillance of the McCann children while they slept was invented. D. The parents are implicated in the concealment of the body of their daughter, Madeleine McCann. E. At this stage, there does not appear to be strong evidence that the child's death was not due to a tragic accident. F. From what we have seen so far, it appears that the parents, in self-defense, do not want to hand over the body immediately and voluntarily, and it is quite possible that the body has been moved from its original location. This situation is likely to raise doubts about the circumstances of the child's death. So at this point, up until this point in the book, it seems that Goncalo Amaral is convinced that Madeleine died on the 3rd of May, but much earlier in the day. Chapter 4. The Book of the Mother of the Disappeared Child. Oh gosh, this book, oh my god. I was reading you guys in another live some quotes from the book. It's just disgusting. Oh, it's unbelievable. On the 4th anniversary of the disappearance, in May 2011, the book written by the child's mother was finally published in Portugal under the title Madeleine, the Disappearance of our daughter and the search to find her. With this book, the child's mother makes use of her freedom of expression and opinion. While we cannot say anything about freedom of expression, the same cannot be said about freedom of opinion. What is written in this book is not the opinion of a technician or a specialist in abduction research, nor is it an objective opinion purified of emotions and feelings. I mentioned the anniversary above because that is how the date is marked every year. I like to associate the word birthday more with happy events than with sad moments. And I have to agree with Amaral here. It was with some reluctance that, at the request of my literary agent, I agreed to read Madeleine's mother's book. According to him, it was necessary to give a response to what is written there. From the comments of friends who had already read it, I was convinced that it would be another important document to add to the case file. It will have to be analyzed when the investigations are resumed, as well as the documentary produced by Channel 4 and the interview with the girls' parents on the Oprah Winfrey Show. It's unbelievable. I started reading it, and faced with the misrepresentations of fact it contained, I could not resist glossing over the margins of each page. When I was a law student, like so many other law students, I used to write in the margins of codes and manuals in summary and interpretive form. A law book would not be a book if it did not contain handwritten notes by the students in the style of the glossaries of the Middle Ages. Comments such as lie, deceit, and evasion of the truth were written forever in that book, which does not contribute anything new, but only tries to refute evidence, facts and opinions backed by dreams and lies. I was curious to know the defense of the kidnapping thesis based on facts or on legal and police logic, but what I found was a complete void. Perhaps because of the material impossibility of a kidnapping, it is technically impossible to fence off arguments or to put an end once and for all to some of the myths that have grown up around kidnapping. All that remains are the dreams and feelings of a mother. I'm not talking about a simple kidnapping or abduction, but an abduction by a pig who took advantage of the absence of the children's parents to enter the flat. Faced with 3 sound asleep children, he decided to take the eldest, aged 3. It was a kidnapping with a sexual motive. Why a pig? It could be a kidnapping with another type of motive, but a monetary motive, ransom, has to be ruled out as it has not been demanded. Abduction for adoption purposes is also difficult to conceive. Either of the siblings was younger, and usually children younger than the missing person are sought in this type of abduction. There is a slight possibility of a revenge-motivated abduction, but given the facts found, the victim would have to be someone else. Witness Matthew, also a doctor, was allegedly threatened by relatives of a patient in the corridors of the hospital where he worked. The reason? The doctor had made a mistake. This situation has never been clarified. We have never been able to find out what really happened or the identity of the people who threatened the doctor. It should be noted that Matthew's daughter slept 2 doors away from the flat where the child disappeared. The book written by the mother does not explain why the parents assumed that the child was abducted by a pig who was unknown to the family and the group of holidaying friends. It should be noted that in this case the chances of the child surviving are minimal. Perhaps it would have been more understandable if the parents had assumed from the outset that their daughter had been abducted without making assumptions about the motivation. At the time of the event, I was discussing with a colleague the motive for the abduction with a pig and received the ironic reply, "Don't worry too much about it. In the Algarve, with all the foreigners coming on holiday, English, Dutch, Germans, etc., there are more people than kidnappers, so it should be easy to find a kidnapper for ransom, because there was no such demand. Abduction for adoption reasons is also difficult to conceive. One of the siblings was a minor, and normally in this type of abduction, children younger than the missing person are sought. There is a slight possibility of a revenge-motivated abduction, but given the facts found, the victims would have to be someone else." I think it's again repeating. Let's see. The most natural thing for those with custody responsibility for the child would be to say, our daughter has been abducted. It is not for us to speculate on the motivation of the abductor or abductors, or simply to say, our daughter has disappeared. The abduction thesis is based on the fact that the girl's parents do not assume any responsibility for her disappearance, and that two witnesses at different times saw in Praia da Luz, a few minutes before the alert of the disappearance, a man with a girl on his lap who could be Maddie. As for the fate of the missing girl, we can read at the beginning of the book. In the following pages, it will become clear, although we still do not know what happened to Madeleine, that there is no evidence that she suffered any irreparable harm. But at the end of the book, we are left with the same perception we had at the beginning. Nothing is clear. The author's wish has not come true. We still don't know what happened to the girl, and there is no proof that she is alive. On the other hand, the words bordering on arrogance of the girl's father, if she is dead, show me the body, are suspicious in this context. It may have gone unnoticed by some readers, but the author even speaks of her daughter in the past tense, almost as if she no longer exists. The use of the verb tense, sentiria, may be another mistranslation which the author complains about throughout her story, but it is printed in the Portuguese version. Artemic is asking, how could Madeleine have died earlier in the day and be medicated too? Well, I'm not sure. It's, what it says in the book. Yeah, this is the PDF file that I have. It was sent to me by Ola, translated into English. So, just a word of advice. Some things might be translated wrongly. These misinterpretations from the perspective and interest of the child's parents and their group of friends have been the means to challenge the testimonies and statements provided to the police. Contradictions, inconsistencies, and lies are invoked to justify the unjustifiable. The author goes so far as to give advice to unsuspecting readers. Should you ever find yourself involved in a criminal investigation in any country, always make sure you read the statement in your own language. The range of mistranslations extends to the Control Risks Report, the only known document produced by the private detectives, which is not at all favorable to them because he questions the father's initial account when he said he had gained access to the flat through the main entrance door using his key. Control Risks concluded that this is not true as the key was inside the flat. The complainant attempts to discredit and devalue the evidence in the investigation. As this evidence is not favorable to him, it is the result of a mistranslation. What he should tell is his truth built up over the years through new contradictions, inconsistencies, and lies. Therefore, his book should be one more document to be added to the criminal proceedings. In the preface of the book, we find the purpose, which we would call commercial, the bait for the unwary, to tell our story, to tell the truth, a written chronicle of what really happened, because the author claims to know the truth. I know the truth. We know the truth. God knows the truth. Without wanting testimony and statements made to the police. Contradictions, inconsistencies, and lies are invoked to justify the unjustifiable. Okay, again, it's repeating. Without wishing to enter into evaluations, I find it strange and contradictory, and only that the author has expressed. The only person who knows what really happened is the one who kidnapped her. If this is so, if neither parent is the abductor, then what is this truth she claims to know? Let alone divine truth, because that is much broader. It can only mean that they bear no responsibility for their daughter's mysterious disappearance, nothing more than that, which in fact is no small thing. The parents are suspects and defendants in the criminal case, which was prosecuted at the Lagos prosecutor's office and which, curiously, was kept in the archives for many years. Let it not be said that expressing contrary views calls into question the presumption of innocence. It's a mere presumption which does not nullify the search for truth, nor can it prevent public criticism. Behind this observation, it is possible to discover another semi-cult purpose, that of clearing the name and image of the parents who were responsible for the custody of the child on the now distant 3rd of May 2007. The justification for sacrificing the privacy of the author and her family must have been taken into account when the book was published, seeming to relativize all the media exposure to which they were subjected and which they fed from the first moment of the disappearance. We cannot forget that the parents have become public figures of interest and continue to behave as such through the interviews, the documentaries, and the book. Public figures are subject to scrutiny. What they do, say, write, and opine can and should be subject to and seek to contradict. For the author, the book would serve to keep the public's attention on the search for Madeleine and to finance the search by fattening the fund managed by herself and her relatives. I have serious doubts that such an altruistic objective has been achieved, especially considering the nonsense contained in the book. The purpose of the publication, it seems to me, is an attempt at image laundering and to further vilify those who have been defamed as a result of the child's disappearance. The author's logic is easy to understand. The parents are exempt from blame for the disappearance. They are victims. Their daughter was stolen from them. All those who express opinions contrary to the abduction thesis attack them. Only their opinion, turned into absolute truth, can count. No other opinion is admissible. The book is written within the logic of the American Survival Guide for families of long-term absent children. It addresses some of the issues contained in this volume: the collaborative relationship with the police, relations with the media, private detectives, psychics, the management of the Child Search Support Fund. All approaches are made from the perspective of defending the image of the parents without contributing anything to the discovery of the truth. Nothing can be known about their ongoing investigation because, for legal reasons, certain opinions cannot be shared until Madeleine is found. We learn that the parents' investigation is shrouded in secrecy. We still don't know what their detectives, paid in gold, have been doing for years to find the missing child. Oh yes, you told me this before, boy, I forgot it. I forgot the word you said. I remember now. Oh yeah, PDF. Oh, great. Yes, hopefully I'm going to remember next time. Hi Angela, thanks for joining. Yes, I'm really glad he wrote the book as well. And thank you for your kind words. We still do not know whether their work focused solely on this objective or whether, as rumor has it, they have been concerned to discredit the Portuguese investigators. Among many other omissions, we cannot discover where the missing child was born, nor the reason for the delay in registering her, but perhaps this is irrelevant to the search for Maddie. In speaking of her daughter, the mother attempts to portray herself as a careful and diligent parent, writing She lived in terror that Madeleine would hurt herself, and if she erred in caring for her daughter, it was always on the side of caution. I think a psychologist could explain this need to emphasize something that seems obvious and natural. A mother is always afraid that her children will hurt themselves. In the opening pages, the girl's mother expresses her desire to put an end to the difficulties she had in sleeping when she was still a baby. She seemed to have, at the very least, a declared aversion to sleep. But this suddenly changed. It happened at the wedding of her friends, Fiona and David Payne. In Italy, Madeleine outgrew her insomnia phase. One night they put her to bed, and amazingly she slept for 6 hours straight. It was a truly memorable day, writes the author. It is interesting to use this pair of friends as proof of the end of the sleepless phase. Not to be forgotten is the role played by this couple during the holiday and after the mysterious disappearance. David Payne will have been the last stranger to the family to see the child alive. Fiona observed the care shown by his mother with the other children, controlling their breathing. But, and there is always a but, this is not chronologically correct. In September 2007, the maternal grandfather claimed that his granddaughter had been prescribed Calpol, an antihistamine, to help her sleep. That summer of 2007, a British police officer visited the parents' home in Rothley and noticed the blackboard attached to the fridge which listed the rewards the child was entitled to for sleeping. Thus, long after the day spent in Italy and after they had moved into the new family home. The author herself declared to the judicial police that her daughter had, until a few months ago, had problems sleeping, stating that this problem had been overcome. All these precautions and explanations for such a simple matter as a child's difficulty in falling asleep led to the suspicion that this is still happening, and that the drug Calpol was used to put the children into a deep sleep. Pages later, the author returns to the subject of Madeleine's sleeping difficulties and in relation to the twins and her own normal bedtime. In the case of the former, at 7 p.m., while her sister went to sleep half an hour later. She says, Sean and Emily never had any trouble falling asleep, and Madeleine had overcome her insomnia problem as a baby. But in the case of Madeleine waking up during the night, it was always late, never before 2 or 3 a.m. It is interesting, this insistence on denying Madeleine's sleeping difficulties and on indicating that the child could not have woken up screaming for her father 2 days before her disappearance. She only woke up around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, by which time they had already returned from dinner. But the fact is that the girl, 2 days before her disappearance, woke up around 10:30 and was alone with her siblings, crying and screaming for her father for almost 2 hours. Pages later, and now completely unpublished, we learn that in the early hours of 2nd of May 2007, Madeleine appeared in her parents' bedroom complaining that Emily was crying and had woken her up. According to witnesses, Madeleine cried on the night of 1st of May, the night the couple stayed out of the house for hours, forgetting to keep watch every 30 minutes. The author gives the following explanation. At breakfast, already on the 3rd, Madeleine must have asked them, "Why didn't you come when Sean and I were crying last night?" Although intrigued, the author states that they can't know anything because Madeleine is intelligent. She knows how to express herself perfectly and always says what she has to say. If something had made her cry, it was very unlikely that she wouldn't tell us as long as she remembered what it was. So Madeleine did not remember why she was crying, and if she had explained what had happened, she might not have disappeared and might even have waited 2 days before questioning her parents. It is only many pages later that the author addresses the question of the reward board, giving a new explanation. For a few weeks in late 2006, early 2007, Madeleine had gone through a phase where she would come to our room before dawn. Note that there is no longer talk of insomnia or difficulty sleeping, but only of an early start before dawn. So her mother decided to help her make a reward chart on which a star was put every time Madeleine stayed in bed. Note the attempt to circumvent the problem of sleep. It was just a reward for staying in her bed, regardless of whether she was awake or asleep. The meaningless is such that it is the author to invent it. As for this reward table, which for the criminal investigators represented and represents the child's sleeping difficulties, her insomnia, which did not end during the holidays in Italy and continued in May 2007, a fact that was and must continue to be pondered, the mother seems to invent a miraculous story claiming that the investigators insisted on calling it a punishment table. In my opinion, one has to be brazen and very disingenuous to make such a claim. As for the safety of the children, along with their parents dined out, the author claims to have had an apparent sense of security because it was pretty much the same as dining in a friend's garden, with the children sleeping at home. This explanation does not correspond to the truth, being certain that consciously and maliciously the children's parents would never put them in danger. It is no less true that this happened through carelessness. The mother mentions a pattern of surveillance every 30 minutes and takes the opportunity to explain that it was an opportunity to go to the bathroom or to get a cardigan. The account of the night of 3rd of May is almost surreal. The author makes another revelation. We told the others what Madeleine had said that morning. Again, the theme of the children's crying when they were alone in the house at night. This situation led to strict punctuality in our inspection visits. I find this statement ridiculous, to say the least. It is claimed that on the night of the child's disappearance, they were more rigorous. For the mother, there had already been other attempts to abduct her daughter, but by chance the disappearance occurred on the night when the inspection was most assiduous and rigorously punctual. Another fact that is hard to believe is the inspection carried out by the child's father. This is where the mysteries get thicker. The man, after all, had no need to go to the bathroom to urinate. He went home to inspect his children and noticed that the door to the children's bedroom was more open than it was. This would be the moment when the alleged abductor hides behind the children's bedroom door, which is the first mystery. The child's father was alerted that the door was more open, but he didn't look inside the room where his children were sleeping. He still went to look for the eldest daughter in the parents' bedroom, although in his statements to the police he said that when they left the house, all 3 children were sleeping in their beds, the missing girl in a single bed and the twins in their respective cots. After finding that the daughter was not in her parents' bed, the father entered the children's room, and he later claimed the abductor could be at that very moment hiding behind the door. So the child's father and the abductor coincided in the house. Does this chance encounter denote an appalling lack of planning on the part of the abductor? I would say yes. The second mystery concerns the way Madeleine slept and above all the way she was covered. Her mother writes, with her legs covered by the blanket. The mystery is, which blanket is she referring to? The image recorded in the documentary record is of a bed with the clothes, sheets and blankets lightly and neatly spread open on the right side, with a pink blanket neatly folded and arranged on the right side of the pillow, next to the stuffed animal. As someone said at the time, a bed in which it looked as if no one had slept. It was a bed that, in addition to blankets, had sheets. As the mother herself says, the top right corner of the sheet was still folded. Doubts therefore remain, perhaps due to a clerical error or mistranslation, as to the blanket that covered the child's legs while she slept. Jess is saying, is it bad enough? It is bad enough to leave the children, 3 children alone, but can you imagine going ahead and doing the same thing again after the oldest child had expressed her fears along with her little brothers? I know, It's just, it doesn't make sense, does it? And how would you go about leaving them the next night? What did they say to them? How did they get all three of them off to sleep? To be honest with you, I'm trying to understand, and I'm kind of questioning who decided to come up with this story and who thought that it's so believable, because it just doesn't sound, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't sound believable at all. I mean, think about it. There are so many doctors, they are intelligent people, and they came up with this, in my opinion. Jazz is also saying, even if they manage to get them to sleep and leave the apartment without them waking, what happens when they wake up? Honestly, I don't know. That's why this story is unbelievable. I mean, I'm not sure that I don't think I believe it. I don't think that the children were left alone. I think they just came up with this story. I mean, there are just too many questions. Like you just said, what happens when they wake up? You know, if they would have planned to leave those children alone and monitor them, as in checking them every half an hour, they must have had, logically, they must have had a plan in case the children would wake up. But there was no mention of anything like that, so I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense. Arctic Nick is asking, why would the parents make up the bed and to not make it appear not slept in? Again, if it would have been like a genuine abduction, kidnapping, I'm sure that they wouldn't have touched anything. It's my opinion as well that they staged the crime scene to make it look like an abduction. But I don't know, but again, it sort of doesn't make sense. It wasn't thought out very well, I don't think, because then if you are trying to prove that your child was abducted whilst she was in bed sleeping, the bed wouldn't be made. So it kind of goes against them. It does, really, it does. It does, because, yeah, why would you make the bed if your child went missing from that bed? I don't know. It's just strange. It's a very strange story, and it's a very unbelievable story, and I'm not sure how they didn't see it when they spoke about it. Okay, let's carry on. Why were only the legs covered, and which blanket is being referred to? If you are referring to the pink blanket, it was not found in a position to cover the child's legs. It should be noted that she said blanket. After being photographed by the police in the indicated position, it was not seen again. The aforementioned princess blanket mentioned by the mother. In it, the mother tries to explain the disappearance of the blanket, stating that at the request of the GNR and in order for the sniffer dogs to track the child, she handed over the blanket and some clothes, explaining, I went to get the pink blanket that I used to take to bed every night, which they took, and some clothes which they didn't want. It was the GNR's fault that the blanket disappeared, not hers, because she even gave them the child's clothes. It's unbelievable how people lie so much. What was handed over to the GNR was the bath towel with which, according to the mother, she had wiped the child after the bath so that the child's smell would be fresh. The child's mother did not hand over the pink blanket, the disappearance of which remains a mystery, now enhanced by the excuse written in the book. Next in the book comes the moment of emotion, the thought of the girl's father seeing her asleep. Bear in mind that there were two other children sleeping in that room, but it seems that he only noticed the beauty of his daughter Madeleine, and as he paused for a few moments to look at his daughter, he must have thought, according to the mother, she is so beautiful. The possibility of thinking of the child's father has led criminal investigators as well as British profilers to question his credibility. Throughout the criminal proceedings, the episode is referred to in a different way. According to the child's father would have thought, "I am a lucky father, I have such a beautiful daughter." What is questioned is the reason for reducing the father's thought to a simple "she's so beautiful." Is it legitimate to ask whether this is more credible than the last sighting? It should not be forgotten that the British profilers hypothesized that such a sighting did not take place. Let us recall what was written in the report produced by these specialists. Although it represents a detailed view, rich in detail about Madeleine McCann's position and her father's recollection of positive emotions, it is not unreasonable that such a statement was motivated by a desire to present a positive image. That is, having informed his wife and others that he had indeed gone to see the children, it may have been difficult to admit a contrary version of events in the immediate aftermath of such tragic circumstances. The author describes that after leaving the flat, the father met the witness Jeremy in the street and took a few steps in his direction. The author says from the pages of that book, which I have carefully reviewed, that there was some uncertainty afterwards as to which side of the street the father of the missing girl and the witness Jeremy stood talking. According to the author, her friend and witness, Jane and Jeremy, the place would be the pavement next to the flat, not the pavement across the street. For the father, the encounter was on the pavement in front of the flat. To downplay this contradiction, he writes, in any case, the exact place where they were is not crucial. What may be important is the fact that all three were there. Let me disagree with this conclusion. The exact location is crucial because it is materially impossible for the witness, Jane, to have passed by the other two without literally bumping into them, without them being aware of her presence as they claim. This fact alone casts doubt on Jane's entire testimony. I have no doubt that the witness Jane saw her father and the witness Jeremy talking at the scene where she claims. I have serious doubts that she passed by. It boils down to this. The flat occupied by Jane and her family was on the ground floor, as were the flats occupied by the Oldfield and Mccann families. Access was from the back. The occupants of these flats exited and entered through the back, the shortest and most easily accessible route. Jane is lying when she says that she walked past the other two and immediately saw the abductor with a child on his lap. This is the Gordian knot they wanted to impose on the investigation, the obstacle that seems impossible to overcome. Then there is the inspection carried out by Matthew, which would have occurred at around 9:30 p.m. Matt got up to go and see Grace, writes the mother. Continuing the story, she says that she was still hesitant at the offer to go and see her children, that she wouldn't mind going herself, but that it seemed a bit silly to insist. Recall that this mother had not seen her children for over an hour. And what did Matthew Oldfield see? Nothing. He saw nothing, because in a new version of events given by the mother, he only heard at the door of the children's room. In this version, he no longer saw the twins, nor the window of the room where the children slept. We believe that this was the formula found to eliminate all the contradictions contained in Matthew's testimonies when compared with those of Jane's and the mother. The reason is that if the former's assertion were true, his having looked at the bedroom door, only having seen the twins and not having glimpsed the open window, would cast doubt on all the subsequent testimonies. Jane says that she saw a man in the street with a child on his lap. The mother says that when she entered the room, the window was open. The witness, Matthew, would have to have seen this window open because he went there after the pseudo-sighting of Jane. And this is another Gordian knot in the investigation, resulting from the falsehoods, contradictions, and inconsistencies of the different testimonies. Will it be easy to solve? Think and reason logically. The various accounts of the boy's mother about his entry into the house on the night of 3rd of May 2007 have changed over time, and in your book take on a literally and almost romantic description. Let us not forget that the parents state that they went home for the purpose of seeing their children. Both of them, despite referring to a more open or more closed door, according to their respective perceptions, the first thing they do is not look into the room where their children were sleeping to check if everything is alright. The father finds the angle of the door strange, and as he was not the same when he went out to dinner, he immediately goes to the room where the couple were sleeping to check if Madeleine was there. It should be noted that he did not immediately enter the children's room. Julie is saying, look, theory 1, this poor child is dead, we know who did this, the parents. Yes, in my opinion, you are right. This poor child was murdered and we know who by, mother and father. She never existed. Theory 1, murdered and we know who by, mother and father. Theory 2, she never existed. Ask yourself, why has this case taken precedent over thousands of cases of missing children? It's kind of true, and somehow I tend to believe that there is something much bigger at play here. The mother goes to check on her children, and in her own words, then I noticed that the door to the children's room was wide open, not the way we had left it. At first I assumed Matt had opened it. I walked over to it and started to open it gently. As a friend of mine says, I don't get it now. So this mother goes to see her children sleeping alone in a room and she doesn't go in, she just closes the door. What a strange thing to do. We can assume that she was not going to see her children, whom she had not seen for about 2 hours, but only to listen or to go to the bathroom. Okay guys, so I'm going to stop here. We've gone to page 22 of the book, and we will carry on in the next live, because it's already after 2 o'clock and it's quite late and I don't want to keep you up much longer, and as well I'm not sure for how much longer I can keep reading, because I'm already like stuttering a lot because of the too much reading that I've done. So if you guys have any last comments before I end the live. Artemic is saying, you are a total superstar, cat. Thank you so much, Artemic. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. Jersey Girl, thank you so much and have a good night. And guys, have a Merry Christmas and enjoy your holidays. I'm probably going to see you before the new year. Okay guys, thank you so much, and don't forget, next time keep an eye out on those notifications. I'm going to try my best to get a live schedule so you know in advance when I'm going to go live. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Artemic. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for your kind words. Take care guys, have a good night and Merry Christmas. Bye.